Hello, I'm Terry David Mulligan, and this is the Mulligan Stew podcast. The guest this week is my friend Dan Mangan. I'm lucky to have him as a friend. I really am. We've known each other quite a while. I like the man, and I like the music. This interview that we did was done before the Junos, obviously, because we're talking about the Junos, like it hasn't happened yet. And the fact that we were going to do the Juno Couch in Edmonton at CKUA with Jim Cuddy and his sons. As it turns out, Jim and his sons were playing hockey at the same time that our Juno Cup was organized. And so at the same time that our Juno Couch was organized. And so Dan Mangan became a co-host along with Tom Wilson from Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. And it was fantastic. You can see it on the Mulligan Stew podcast. Okay. Anyway, this interview just covers a lot of things. Every time we talk, we cover a lot of ground. His health, for one thing. He explains that he's putting all of his tension in his jaw and it's starting to affect his vocals and voice. We'll talk about Side Door. They got their funding. And they're expanding. They're still not making dough yet. It's like Airbnb for touring for artists who have yet to break, but have the potential to break. Dan was there once, and he got a leg up and he looked back and said, "We can do better with touring in Canada, and these people need help, and that's why Side Door exists." We'll talk about the Junos and what winning and losing in Juno means to him. It's very interesting that. We'll talk about his album Being Somewhere. We'll talk about solo gigs that he's done, and if he likes that. Folk festivals. We'll talk about folk festivals in relationship to today's ticketing crisis, the money that's being scraped off out of people's pockets. We'll talk about that, and maybe Side Door is an answer to us at a certain level. So we're going to talk about all of that and more, and do enjoy this conversation. Rather than not include the Juno, I thought you might enjoy the Juno conversation. That's why we left it in. Here's Dan Mangan on the Mulligan Stew podcast. I'm Terry David Mulligan. This is Dan Mangan on my screen left, by the way. I hope that you're watching this on video. I mean, it's audio, and yes, it'll be on Mulligan Stew and on the podcast, but we do video now these days. People like Dan and I, busy executives.
It's like the Jetsons, when he used to start to get up and his boss is already yelling at him through the video thing.
And so I want to start by asking a question about your health, but then I realize that I am, in fact, if I follow your reasoning, I may be contributing in part to your health because you're required to speak with your singing voice. And here I am Zooming again. Let's see if we can find it. I don't want to go away feeling horribly guilty. That's all.
Occupational hazard. Yeah, it's the funny thing is that for my profession, I have to sing and I have to talk, and my ongoing issue is this vocal exhaustion / acid reflux / TMJ. I think what happens is that I'm generally like a pretty relaxed guy. And I realized that that's because I somehow managed to put all of the stress in my whole body into my jaw. And so I don't know, maybe there's some, psychological couch I need to sit on or something like that to figure that out. But yeah, it's okay. I've done a lot of work, and I'm in a better place with it all. And I just realized it's something that I have to kind of mitigate and manage for the rest of my life.
Well, you can do a lot of work in your day-to-day life. Certainly, you can regulate that. But once you step out in the lights, as you know, you were born for the lamps. Then that's a whole other thing, because you are not exactly a shouter, but you do have vocal dynamics that you want to display. You can't help but notice in this album that there's a lot of half whispers going on, which I thought was a nifty production element, fabric. But
yeah, there's definitely a softer touch to the vocal treatment and the vocal delivery. A lot of that has to do with Drew Brown, who's the producer on Being Somewhere, and he really pulled that out of me. That's his favorite point in my sort of vocal range was that sort of like just above a whisper. And so he would always push me to do takes in that regard and in that sort of style. Um, there's also a lot of like vocal doubling on this record, so you get that kind of Elliott Smith, style, panned left and right, two different vocal takes kind of matching each other.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of that on this record. Um, and a lot of like sort of treating the voice like an instrument within, rather than like a straight down the middle, um, classic kind of way. But the vocals are also quite prominent on the record too. And I think Drew has a very minimalist production style. He doesn't want too many things in there, but he wants everything that is in there to be undeniably great, And so he's ruthless. I'll send him 30 ideas for a song and synth lines and pads and
And
counter melodies.
you're a control guy. You're a
Well, of
hands-on
course,
guy.
if you ask my jaw, which is clenched apparently 24 hours a day, yeah, apparently I'm trying to white knuckle the steering wheel here. Well, and I've always been in charge. I've always had this sort of dictatorial say when it comes to recording and production, and which makes sense. It's my name on it at the end of it. But I really gave him license with I basically handed him the keys to the car, and I said, you make all the final decisions.
Did he has he told you everything about Radiohead that you ever wanted to know?
He's told me some things about Radiohead that I've always wanted to know. He doesn't do a lot of kissing and telling,
Yeah,
you know.
that's good. This is good because you move on to other projects and he can do the same thing for you. I'm just kind of wondering, what in his makeup, in his history, told you that you would be a great match in studio?
Oh, well, I mean, you nailed it right there. I mean, my Achilles heel, my kryptonite is you just said the word Radiohead. They've been my favorite band since I was 14. Um, and he's worked with them. He was Nigel Godrich's sort of right hand guy in London for many, many years, and so he worked with Beck, and he's worked on the last 5 or 6 Beck records, and he's just sort of a lot of people don't know his name. He's not like a flashy guy. He's not on social media. He doesn't do anything on the internet whatsoever. He's not, but he sort of flies under the radar, and he gets invited all the time to come and sit in with massive pop stars.
Yeah.
He's sort of like this sort of secret weapon for a lot of folks, and he just comes in and he's got great ears and great taste and he knows how to work a synth. So yeah, he's just this sort of mystical guy. He'll never hear this interview. He will never, he tries to not participate in the world as much as possible. But he's got a fine art degree in photography from Yale and a master's of photography, and like somehow that really informs
Yeah.
his
Okay.
approach when it comes to music.
I'm going to send him a link. That's it. That's
yeah, yeah.
I want to play a track before I talk about the Junos. And you surprised me so much when I saw a post that was literally a rave about Fire Escape. You said, it's maybe the best thing I've ever recorded. I remember you were jubilant. Uh, and it shows. I just want to play the track, but it is written about a time, if I remember correctly, that's summer of 2020, which is the summer of George Floyd and all that transpired. Mm-hmm. They could not be different worlds, but they came together. So how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in that mode, June 2020, the heat of George Floyd protests. And so there was this thing of like everyone's stuck inside, and also everyone's out in the streets protesting. There was a sort of imploding, exploding dynamic at play. There was a lot of articulation going on social media of people sort of discussing, the sort of injustices of our society. And I think that a lot of anger, and a lot of white people particularly, I think were doing their best to listen and try to understand the ways that they were aloof or maybe, unknowingly benefiting from an unjust society. And so it sort of felt like, I remember it was like, I think it was, and it's still this way, but like, it just seems like if somebody could write the perfect tweet that, articulates just what's wrong with humanity, maybe we could fix it. And, of course it's ridiculous, but it's sort of this feeling of like everyone's waiting for someone else to articulate the perfect thing that makes it make sense. And then we can approach the problems with solutions. So the song is sort of about feeling lonely. It's about needing like a friendly pat on the back and, a familiar voice. Meet me out by the fire escape. It could be like alone at a party, like meet me outside. Let's get some fresh air kind of thing.
Mhm.
But it's also about just all of these feelings of, and I want to read the news maybe without losing my head. All of these lines that are sort of, I think relevant to today's moment, but
Mm.
you have to be careful with songwriting that you don't make it so specific
Yeah.
to a moment that it can't. I mean, that's why you listen to any great old Bob Dylan song or something like that, and it's all so political from, the moment when he wrote it, but it's also completely relevant today still, and I really approach it with that lens.
I immediately thought of Goodbye, Jimmy Reed. Oh, never mind. And the fire escape that is embedded in my brain is Ralph Cramden and Norton yelling back and forth at each other out the window of the honeymooners. Sorry, I live there. Sorry, I just live there. Dan Mangan is with us. The album, of course, is available, Being Somewhere, and it's out there. 9 tracks. We're going to ask you. I'm going to ask you about the last track. I'm fascinated by the last track.
Mm.
But first, Junos are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You have been nominated for the Adult Alternative Juno.
And I want them to keep adding different
More
like
words.
suffixes and adjectives to the award. So it's going to be like adult, alternative, adjacent, I don't know. Just keep adding like signifiers into make these categories more and more niche.
I
But
laugh.
that's the only way I get invited to the Junos. Is you make these very specific categories that I could fit into.
um, with vocal inflections in brackets. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
just one thing. Did you watch the Grammys?
Sorry, I
Did you watch
Zoom
the
cut out
Grammys?
there.
Did you? Did you watch?
I missed them this year. I do try to watch them, but I missed
The
them this year.
moment was when Bonnie won. The room,
Oh yeah.
the room just went wow, because we were surrounded by lipstick and clips and glam and attitude and all sorts of stuff. It was Bonnie Raitt, a working musician, actually won the damn Grammy. She won two. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
And I
big.
think that the brothers Landreth had a
That song
song on
made
that
up
record.
mine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's their
Pretty
song.
cool.
It took 7 years to get that song to Bonnie and for Bonnie to record it and get it out. And it was the first single off the album. Yeah.
Amazing. And it won the Grammy.
Anyway, so Junos, well, are you attending? Will you be handing? Are you wearing a?
I will be there. I will. Yeah, I take it. I will see you in Edmonton. Will I
Yes,
not?
I'll see you on the Juno couch. I'll explain later. Um,
Okay.
but congratulations. And do you know your fellow nominees?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think I've shared stages with every single one of them. Ultimata supported one of our shows at Bose in
That's
Red
right.
Deer. I've shared the stage several times with Basha Bulat and the Weather Station, and we did a folk festival workshop shop stage with the Sadies. So we've run the gamut. These are
It, it,
all people that I know and love.
it should be a love in. By the way, the previous Junos that you won, did they change your career, or did they change your career
They
path?
did. No, yeah, they totally did. So here, my take on awards is that, of course you have to like have this sort of like categorical thing of like awards are kind of all BS. But the way that I decompartmentalize it in my mind that helps me sleep at night is that um, there's the art, there's the work, and there is your career. And they sometimes collude and sometimes they are sort of at odds with each other. And the award is not about the art. It's not the album is what's nominated, but truly the award is not about the work or a subjective qualitative um, response to the work. The award is about momentum, and it's about your career, and it's about who is the horse that we're betting on this time, who gets the pat on the back, who are we gathering around and saying you're doing a great job. And so when you win or lose the award, you are getting the sort of cohesive, conglomerate pat on the back from the industry at large saying, we're with you. That's what you're getting. And so when you lose the award, which is something that I've done, many times, I've lost many awards. Um, I, it's not about the work. It's not that the other work was better than your work. It's that the other person's career and momentum was more in the zeitgeist than yours is. And that, I think, kind of separating church and state is a healthy thing.
I know you well, but maybe not well enough to know. I think the only reason that you talk about things like that is because we keep asking questions about it. I don't think you give it any second thought. Is not the first thing you think of in the morning or the last thing you think of at night.
No, but it's like awards are stupid and they don't mean anything. And yet, when you win,
yeah,
God, it feels good. God, it feels good. And everyone the whole weekend, oh, congratulations, boy, did you deserve that. Now, of course, someone else won, they'd be saying that to them. But that's how it works. So
you got ripped off, man.
Yeah. I'm not impervious to
to love,
to excitement, and
okay.
I would be lying if I said I didn't. I'm also an ambitious person. I have big, wild, silly dreams, and so of course I want to win. I think that there are probably people maybe who are cooler or I don't know, maybe more psychologically balanced or something. Maybe they actually truly don't care. But I understand that, I winning an award like that, even like when you go to Australia and someone's introducing you on stage or something, and they say, "Oh, two Juno Awards winning or whatever," it draws a circle around you, and it says like, verified. It's like a blue check mark on social media or something. And there's all sorts of things about it that are elitist and dumb and stupid and like ego flagellating, whatever. However, it's helpful. It's helpful. I have kids to feed, and winning awards helps you feed your kids. It helps the path,
Kids to school, my friend. Kids to school. Like that's an expensive thing these days because they're going to get better and better and bigger and bigger. They're going to go to college and never.
Everything's more expensive, and they're going to live at home until they're 40. So,
so how is your health? I just want to know: is it okay? You're good?
My health is really good. Actually, I think I'm healthier than I've ever been in my whole life.
And the voice is good.
Voice is doing great.
You did a couple of evenings with Dan. Mm-hmm. Which I understand, if they're successful, will become a weekend with Dan, and then Dan will move in.
Weekend at Danny's, yeah.
So do you do like a request wheel? Do you spin the wheel and you? Because I know I'm on your newsletter and I'm getting those things saying, "Ask me anything, ask me anything. Go ahead, ask me anything." And I'm seeing your responses.
Yeah. Well, last year there was just a couple of shows that I played where it didn't make sense to bring a band. It was just like, kind of a remote, kind of what they'd call like a tertiary market. And there just wasn't enough money involved, to afford to bring the band, etc. So I just did them alone. And what I found was that they were really fun. Like I would play hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours even sometimes.
Wow.
And people just wouldn't let me leave the stage, and they were just requesting songs. And I, when I'm on stage, I try and be the same person I am right now. Like I don't put on, I don't thrive behind the smoke and mirrors. I just want to be as normal as possible. And in these shows, they're very intimate, very casual, very informal. And it was so much fun that I realized that I never get to do shows like that in major cities.
Okay.
And so this was sort of a run of shows in tiny venues where I could, but in major cities where I could just, basically hang out with folks for a couple hours and tell
And you
stories and
liked
take
it, but
requests.
I also know that you like your band when you get out there, and all of a sudden the music it starts to sound like it does on record.
Yeah, I mean, I love Thai food, but I also like sushi and I like lasagna, life requires balance. Sometimes you got to go there to come back, and I love my band. But it's nice to do things in different ways.
Congratulations on this music, by the way. I should have started right at the top. It plays beautifully. Tracks
Thank
take
you.
my breath away. Um, Somebody described it. I can't claim who this. I don't know who it was. It was a quote that said, "This is music for the depressed post-pandemic millennials." Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
The thing about it is I find joy in it. I'm
yeah.
finding
I,
that.
I mean that's the point. But the point is to find resonance in something that speaks. So, like a good song should unlock some kind of hidden truth
Yep.
that makes you go, "Oh, I feel the same way."
Yep.
And just knowing someone else was able to articulate it for you, now you're both less alone. And so that's why when you go to a funeral, which is terribly sad, but you cry with 100 other people, there is like there's a lightness to it when you have like a communal experience with anybody else. And so music can do that, and a good song should do that. It should alleviate some existential respite.
There's ebbs and flows within the tracks, the 9 of them, totally. Those first two, All My People and Fire Escape, as you've explained, is about what was going on around you without letting it draw you in, or vice versa. And then there's a shift, easy, just know it, all roads, and they're very personal, in your corner. That's different. Those are different.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last three kind of are maybe looking ahead, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's, the first chapter is sort of like how we're doing. And then the second chapter is how I'm doing.
Ah,
And then the third chapter, I think you could call it How Can I Help You to Be Still, which is actually a line from one of the songs.
hmm.
And it's sort of like, here's a list of things like that I am willing to do to help you out. How can I help you? How can I help take some burden off of your shoulders, or make living easier? Um, and it's, the record it's a very tender, caring record. And I think if it has an overarching theme, it's cool to care. I that's I think where I'm coming from with a lot of this.
Okay. I know you've been in the basement a while, and I'm wondering how much you want to get out on the road. What does 2023, 24 look like? Have you set your plans, or are you taking it a season at a time?
Get me out there. We're going to announce some touring in the fall across Canada, and it's going to be deep. We're going deep. We're doing a lot
Secondary
of shows.
secondary markets.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and then it looks, there are some plans, some pokers in the fire to try and get back to Europe and down to the States more. But I am rip roaring ready to go. I can't wait to get out and play more shows. It's I don't know. I mean, I said it before. I feel healthier than I've been in my whole adult life. My kids are a little older. I'm not no, I'm no longer sort of like in the World War I trench of having toddlers. Um, and I'm excited, and I feel optimistic about the songs I'm writing, and about the sort of quality of connection that I'm having with audiences these days. I'm in a really good place, and I feel hopeful for the future. And yeah, I just want to do stuff.
Of course you do. Speaking of stuff, side door. I missed your
Mm.
Dragon's Den. I didn't see the pitch. I saw a still, but I didn't see the pitch. I'm thrilled that Arlene was the one that stepped forward and funded you. Was it $500,000? Is that what you were asking for?
Yeah, she offered us half $1 million, which was nice. It was nice to like leave Dragon's Den a winner. There's a distinct difference of like getting a deal and not getting a deal.
And what changes did it give you, maybe even behind the scenes at Side Door, that helps you be a better side door?
Well, and okay, so the funny thing is that we had actually already raised like over $4 million US, from like venture capital funds and angel investors and stuff like that. And so Dragon's Den, we were looking for money, but we were also just looking for publicity, and that's I think why pretty much everybody does it. The deal is great, but really you're doing it for the free marketing, and the dragons are doing it for the marketing too. Like they just want to be seen as
Sure.
cool, popular, influential, wealthy people or whatever. So you're making TV is what you're doing. You're making quality TV. And so we had actually, the funny thing is that we'd actually just closed a big funding round right when we went on Dragon's Den. So we didn't actually need the money, but we have had some subsequent meetings with Arlene's people, and we'll see what happens.
The whole concept of Side Door, I loved it from day one when it was just getting started. I love that. I thought that all of those artists who need that next step, who need to be heard, seen, places to go, shelter from the storm. They finally had someone who understood, and created it from the inside out, and it's been such a success. Of course, during the pandemic, it was crazy, it was nuts, and I was just in the audience watching. It was exhausting. What does it settle into now? Does it feel comfortable? Is it self-sustaining?
No, it's not self-sustaining yet. We're still spending way more money than we're making.
Wow. Shoot.
But that's okay. That is the nature of a tech startup. That's the idea, is that it sort of, you burn money until you catch fire, and then you take off. And so that's sort of like the natural trajectory. The pandemic was weird because in some ways it helped us.
Yeah.
We got in front of a lot of people doing online shows and did, big numbers with some pretty big artists. But then shortly, as the pandemic waned, we scrapped the entire infrastructure we built for online shows and went back only to doing in-person shows. And so, the core thing is marketplace for the arts, where any space is a venue. So living rooms, bookstores, warehouses, you connect with artists, you book shows, you split the revenue, everyone gets paid out fairly, automatically, transparently. So very, it's a tool by which artists can find places to play that you would never find on Google. These are not, traditional venues. And so, there's, I think, over 7,000 artists now and over 3,500 spaces in North America. There's lots going on. There's shows happening. And we are getting closer to figuring out how we can best serve artists. And, we're everyone from like, I don't know, your Uncle Bob, who has a cover band, up to,
your uncle.
that kind of, like we're catering to like the lower 97%. Basically the top 3% of the music industry they're all making a living, doing fine. They have agents and all that stuff.
But that's where you're looking for somebody who makes your skin bubble, tingle. You go, that's good. That's really good. That's that's how it happens.
Yeah, and I mean, I got my start playing house concerts, and I found that if I played to 30 people in a bar, I got paid with beer tickets, and if I played to 30 people in the living room, I made $500, and it was like, I could pay my rent. And so it's not just house concerts, it's in communities, town halls, and libraries, and curling rinks, and gazebos, and backyards, and barns, and you name it. But it's a special, it's a way for artists to tour, which is very high on return and very low on cost.
Two things, Dan, because I want to get them in. One is, We didn't touch on it, but the Vancouver Folk Festival,
Mm.
are they down for the count? It's where you got your first big start, where we noticed, and there was a buzz about you, and you spun out of that. Um, uh, can it survive? And secondly, the whole ticketing fiasco that's going on right now. Springsteen just announced a Canadian tour in November that will break the bank. Um, is that are people saying I can't do that, but I can do side door? Will that help?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like we've had a lot of interviews recently, and it makes sense. Like when you're telling a story, the David Goliath thing, like I think a lot, we're, I feel like I'm continually been in a position where I'm asked to badmouth the big, mean, big players. And what my take on it all is that I know lots of people who work for Live Nation. I know
Yeah,
lots of amazing people who love music, who got into it for all the right reasons.
yeah,
These are not evil people. You know, the issue is that uh, it's a public company who is beholden to shareholders to turn a profit, and so it has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it owns. You know, it's like here's a concert. Here are 17 ways to rake the consumer and extract every available dollar from that concert. And now you have one company that owns 16 of those 17 ways of doing that. And so there's just tons of conflict of interest. You know, you need a bit of a separation, church and state, sometimes between venue and ticketing company and promoter. And in many cases, these are all owned by the same company.
yeah.
So there's a conflict of interest that often works. Um, it works to the benefit of superstar artists because huge ticket, you know, the Springsteens and the Beyoncés and everyone, you know, they can actually work with these companies and it's very lucrative for them. And the companies will say, hey, we'll be the bad guy. We will
Yeah.
scrape the consumer and we will write you a fat check. So you know, it's a copacetic relationship and it works for that top tier. But it's everybody else who, you know, can't get in. They just can't. They're in the margins and they're having too much trouble. So I don't want to say that side door is the answer to this terrible sort of
No.
monopolistic situation, but I will say that it is an alternative world where artists can make a living doing what they love, even if they're not famous, if they're not in that top tier.
If I throw three titles at you, you notice I don't take a breath. There's no pause here. We just keep going. We, you know, easy, just know it, and all roads. Let's just down to two. Easy and just know it. Pick one to be your next best friend. Which one do you want to talk about?
Oh, I have a real soft. I mean, I think Just Know It's probably the catchiest song on the record, but I have a real soft spot for Easy.
Yeah.
Um, like a memory of, you know, pushing my kid on the swing, middle of the pandemic, feeling totally despondent and anxious and elsewhere, and kids just want all of your attention. I had none to give them, and I was just feeling guilty about being a bad dad, all these things. And you kind of, it's the song sort of about wanting someone to just come smack you around a little bit, kick you in the bum, and get you back on your feet.
All right.
And one of my favorite lines on the record is, you know, shake my branches till I fall. I'm somewhere between here and nowhere at all. Just wanting someone to put you right in the present.
And I told you this in the beginning. I want to ask you about last tracks for me on albums. Pull me. They seem to be an artist. All right, we've done the album. This is what I want to say. Is the kind of thing I keep. It recurs enough that I pay attention. No tragedy, please. Take us through that song, would you? That last one.
Well, it's kind of like a conclusion to the record, or or a hypothesis of why anything matters at all. But it's I mean, I think when you have kids, you for the first time you're really truly vulnerable, because you know, not just your own health and safety, but you know the health and safety of these little creatures that you love beyond everything. And and so you know you desperately hope that, you know, life will be hard and you know there will be ups and downs, but you just desperately hope that you will never ever have to go through the truly devastating things. And I don't need to name them. I think we can think about what they are.
Yes.
Um, and so it's a plea to the universe. It's sort of like a fool's plea of like, just, I can handle the hard stuff, but just please no tragedy. And I think that the song I have to pat myself on the back for this one. I think the chorus of this song sums up something that I've probably been trying to do my whole songwriting career, and that is just to like sum up in a nutshell why anything matters and why it's important and why, you know. So the lines are, you know, maybe too many things really matter to me.
Yeah.
Maybe loss just affirms the value of everything. Maybe love is a curse and will never be free. And maybe there in the sting lies the real poetry. It's the fact that it hurts is the reason why it matters. And you know, the more we love something, the more pain we have to feel if it goes away. And that is just like that is why life is poetic.
Okay. That's fantastic. I'm glad I waited for that last one. By the way, uh, I wish you well at the Junos in the Adult Alternative Deluxe segment,
Yeah, thank you very much.
box set.
Appreciate that.
And I'm doing a Juno Couch, myself and Jim Cuddy and his sons. And I'm extending an invitation now and with your people.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I count me in. I'll be there.
And we can speak well or badly of people, and it'll be live. And
Yeah,
it'll
we'll
be
talk
wonderful.
lots of trash. It'll be great.
There you go. Whatever the year brings, just enjoy it. I'm glad that you got that time spent with your family, and now you got to get on the road and get her done.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank always a pleasure, Terry. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
having me on
man.
the show.
Thank you, man.